guys, welcome to Popular Paintings. My name's Kathryn. I'm with the St. Johns County Public Library System. Today we're going to be painting a droid. You can either use the included template, which was actually inspired by one of the air purifiers that we have here at the library, or you can create your own. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over some of the art supplies and equipment that you're going to need on hand for today's painting. So with me today, I have a variety of different brushes in different sizes made for acrylics specifically. So with this, I have a round, a flat, and a filbert. These are the typical brushes that I use for most of my paintings because they are the most versatile. I also have on hand a palette knife, so I will use this for most of my paint mixing. You can paint with palette knives, but we're not going to be doing that today. I also keep a pencil on hand, which we're going to use to actually transfer a template, and I'll show you how to do that. I also have a Watercup. This one has a lid on it and a coil, so this coil actually helps separate the bristles, which gets your brushes just a little bit cleaner, and it's also easier on your brushes, but you can use whatever you have on hand. So these are the acrylic paints that I have on hand. Acrylic paints come in a variety of viscosities, colors, brands, so just use whatever you have on hand. I've also included a little cheat sheet that you can use if you're not sure what to get. And I always have some paper towels or rags on hand because painting gets a little bit messy, and I know me, I tend to make quite a mess. And here we are, our template and canvas. So this little template you can print off, or it should be included with your kit if you got one. If you don't have this or kind of want to do your own thing, you can always print something off online from one that's already been made. Just be aware that anything you print off is subject to copyright. And with that being said, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is flip over our template and apply a layer of graphite to the back side of the template. So to do this, you're just going to run your pencil across the back, try to create a somewhat thick layer of graphite. You can either use a mechanical pencil, which is what I have on hand, a graphite pencil, or even if you have it, charcoal. Just be aware that charcoal is going to be a little bit messier, so it's going to leave a little bit more residue on your painting while you're working on it. With that layer on there, we're going to go ahead and flip our template back over, and this is going to be ready to go. So we're just going to set it to the side for now and begin with the underpainting of our canvas. For the underpainting, we're just going to do a solid layer. I chose to do a mix of dioxazine purple and titanium white. So to apply this underpainting, first thing I'm going to do is dampen my brush and just lightly drag it over my paper towel or rag just to get a little bit of the extra water off. I'm going to take my paintbrush and put it in my paint and start applying to my canvas. If at any point you need to, feel free to pause the video along the way to get caught up or to see what steps are going to be coming up next. And now for one of the most important steps, once you have your underpainting on, let it dry completely. If you try to paint over it at this point, it's just going to pull up that purple and it's going to muddy your colors. You can paint on top of other layers of wet paint. Just be aware that this is a wet on wet technique, so this is actually going to be used for basically mixing your colors on the canvas, and we don't want to do that today. We want to create some nice vibrant layers and create depth, so we're going to let our layers dry in between. After giving our underpainting 10 to 15 minutes to dry, we're going to go ahead and transfer our template onto our underpainting. So to do this, you are just going to lay your template down and kind of line it up the way that you would like it. And now you're going to take your pencil and you're going to trace the outline of your droid onto your canvas. So this is going to push that graphite that's on the underside of your template onto the canvas and help trace it. Now that our template has been copied to our canvas, I'm just going to take a small number 2 flat, and using the flat edge on that brush, I'm going to take some of my dark purple, in this case I'm using dioxazine purple, and I'm going to trace my droid in that purple on top of that graphite. Now that our outline's done, we're gonna go ahead and apply the background. We're gonna add a layer of black paint. Since mine's a little bit thick, I have to add a few drops of this blending medium. This is an optional step. I have to do it because my paint is too thick, but yours may be just fine, so in which case you can skip this step. So we're gonna be creating a galaxy effect from one corner of our canvas to the other, and we're just gonna do this with our black, leaving a gap in between along where our galaxy is going to go across the canvas. Don't forget to leave a little gap in between the leg and body of your droid so that that galaxy can show up behind him. This is going to create some depth in our painting and make it look like he's in the foreground and the galaxy's in the background. With the layer of our black applied, I'm going to go ahead and do this little crisscross X pattern through the black. This is going to kind of give it a different texture rather than showing every single little brush stroke. It's going to kind of make it all blend in and give it that galaxy feel. Using a number 4 round, I'm also going to go back into our dark purple and just kind of stipple this along the edges of where the black meets that very light lavender. So when we go in and add our colors for the galaxy, this is actually going to help those colors blend in a little bit more, and I'll show you that process as we go. But for now, just go ahead and add in that purple along that black edge where it meets the lavender. Now we're going to take our straight titanium white and go along that little galaxy line down the center, and we're just going to stipple that in. With our titanium white in, we're now going to add a little touch of cadmium red, just a few drops to create this light pink color. You can use whatever red you have on hand, and we're going to stipple this along that edge where we did that dioxazine purple into the black. And now we're going to go in with the number 4 filbert that I have on hand. This has that rounded edge at the top. It's completely dry, and the reason we're doing this is because we're going to stipple it into the other paint. So this is a wet on wet mixing technique. So we haven't allowed our layers to dry in between. We're just kind of mixing the paint on the surface. And so you're just going to push that pink and purples outward into the black and let them blend. Leave the white in the center and then go in with a few dots of cadmium red along that galaxy line. And lastly, we're going to flick some titanium white onto the canvas surface to create our stars. So to do this, I just did titanium white mixed with a little bit of water, flicked it onto the surface, and then be sure to let it dry completely. Once the paint is dried, we're going to do a technique called blocking in, where we add in our blocks of color onto the canvas. So this is sort of like a mid-painting. It's not really the underpainting of something, but it's definitely where we start adding in our colors for what we want things to be. So here I went ahead and already added my white, and I'm just cleaning up some of the edges around these little pieces, such as around the little buttons on this guy, and then along the edges of his what's going to be a color pattern that we're doing. So in order to get these straight lines, I'm really just using the flat edge of the brush and letting that do the work for me. I'm not actually trying to pull that line, I'm just kind of touching and pulling back to keep that straight edge, and that just kind of helps keep everything nice and crisp and gives it some definition. Also, don't be afraid to turn your canvas to get some of those more difficult lines. Now I'm going to go ahead and block in some of the color on him with, I did a mix of Viridian Green, Cerulean Blue Hue, and Titanium White to kind of create this teal color. And we're just going to once again use the flat edge of that flat number 4 brush, and we are going to block in the color. I have that in real quick. I'm going back in with a number 2 round and just kind of touching up some of these edges, and I'm just using the straight black in this case. I'm actually using an ivory black. You can use whatever black you have, and I'm just going in and touching up around the wheels, some areas around the helmet and the body, and that's just to kind of create some definition around those edges and just kind of cleaning up anything that might look a little bit messy. At this point, I also added a few drops of white to some of my black to kind of create this dark charcoal color, and I'm going in and filling in the spots where his buttons are going to be, his little eyeglass, and some of these little vents on the front. And once again, using a number 4 filbert, in this case, I'm also going to make a light pink color, and then this is going to be used as our highlight that's going to reflect off from the galaxy onto his body. So I'm creating this pink color and placing it along the wheels and anywhere I see that the galaxy might reflect off, such as on the helmet and a little bit on his leg and body. Once that's done, I'm also going to go back over those same spots that I put the pink and use some of that lavender color that we made for the underpainting and put those in some of the same areas to kind of reflect that color a little bit better and really kind of pull in all of those colors from the background onto his body as the highlights. Once that was done, I went ahead and added a lavender pink gray color, just very, very lightly across some of the white areas of his body, and also did these darker gray shadows under the helmet and on the underside of his body, kind of where that bottom wheel is. And this is just going to help create that separation and give him a little bit more shape and definition. Once again, I actually used my little round brush and I just went in and cleaned up some of those areas around the wheels and then added some shadows with just black anywhere that I felt was kind of already floating in the black areas of the space. And this is also just to help add that little extra dimension of depth and give this painting some contrast. Moving back to the Droid, I wanted to add a little bit more texture. So with that teal color that I had before, I added just a little bit of black to kind of create a darker tone of it. And then I actually started just stippling it into those solid teal areas and then using that number 4 filbert to kind of stipple it through, texturize it a little bit. At this point that underpainting had dried, so I wasn't really mixing the paint on the canvas. I was just sort of spreading it around on top of that color. This was just to give it a little bit more texture. Moving on to some of the finishing touches, I kind of felt like that he was looking a little too flat in some areas, so I kind of just created these little black vents on the front, just with some straight black, and just kind of painted those in. I also felt that it was important in this illustration to kind of give it a little bit more definition, so using a little liner brush or that number 2 small flat or round, I just went back in and redefined some of those lines that we had done originally in our dark purple and just kind of brought some of those back out just to help give it a little bit more separation and make it not feel like every color was just kind of running into the next. So the last thing I did with this painting was I wanted to add some highlights. So for this I actually just took some straight white and I really focused on adding light in areas that I felt would be reflected from the background. So along the helmet, along the bottom of the wheel area, just to kind of pull this whole thing together, along the top and sides, and just anywhere that I felt like the galaxy in the background would be reflecting onto him. That's the areas that I really added that white. I also just sort of followed along where that galaxy was and added in some lighter areas of that teal color just to help give it a little bit sort of dimension and depth as well in those areas that I felt that the galaxy was reflecting, and that's pretty much it. Now that this painting is finished, I really hope that you guys had a lot of fun painting with me today and that you really just kind of like had a chance to follow along and get in some new painting techniques and styles. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like. Feel free to follow us on Facebook and on YouTube. I will post those links afterwards in the video itself. And yeah, I hope to see you guys next time and that you join me on another popular paintings video. Once again, my name is Kathryn and I will see you guys next time. Bye!